I don't think he's got enough wife beaters, and that mullet won't do well in Miami.
I do real well. He's got
who
the
knows?
topless Bronco that he bought. That nice
Oh,
little
he
Ford
did.
Bronco.
See,
that he
you know
around.
all this stuff with Jog. I just,
I think he posted online. If you followed him, you'd know. Just don't. Just take those in. Just pay, as long as he pays your invoices, you're happy. You don't even follow the guy on social media, bro. What the fuck?
Fucking asshole.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another episode. A lot going on in the NBA. NBL's heating up into the playoffs. Bro, looking a bit cold there, man. You okay?
It's a little bit cold, Bogues, but nah, I'm all good. All good. It's not the apocalypse yet, but it's coming. In Texas, when it drops below like 70, everybody panics like it's the end of the world, but it is a little chilly, so I decided to put some sweats on. How you guys doing?
As long as the pipes don't freeze this time around, bro, you're all good in Dallas. We're all good. Summer here, man, so living the life. Nice and sunny. School holidays, kids are at home 24/7.
Oof.
Nah, it's all right.
Good for you, Bubs.
It's all right. We just lock them outside for periods of the day when they get too antsy. So outside playtime, come back in 1 hour. Here's some water.
Without question. Camp Bogues in full effect.
That's it. But let's get into it. Team of the week in the NBA. I'm going the Atlanta Hawks. They've had actually a good 2 weeks, really, but I'm going to give them the team of the week. Playing really good basketball at the moment. They've won 6 straight. In that, they beat Cleveland back-to-back twice, which was a head-scratcher. It's like, really, really playing well. As we've spoken about, Trae Young's having a phenomenal season, especially when you factor in the assist rate he's moving at, which is fantastic. I think he's still leading the league at over 12 a night. I think he had 20 the other night, pro. So playing really well from the point guard spot. They get Cleveland twice, at Charlotte and New Orleans, kind of easier games. But then they get at Milwaukee, who are playing really well right now, and they get the Lakers in a close one. So playing really good basketball, ball's moving. They got a nice bench unit, and Trae Young's playing kind of that pure point guard role that I guess people had questions about when he first came in the league. Is he a point guard? Is he more of a scoring bulk shooter? Can get assists? But I think the way he's playing this season, he started off really well.
Yeah, Bogues. I mean, no doubt about it. He's playing really well, especially dropping 12 assists a game. I think, look, coming up for the draft, and he was in the same draft as Luka, and coming out off scouts, and I watched him quite a bit when he was in college at Oklahoma, and he could really pass. I mean, his shooting was okay. I mean, he shot the deep ball. He just wasn't an efficient shooter, in my opinion, but he could really score. He's quick and, gets to the basket. But his ability to pass, I thought, was always good. And I think when he came in, the original GM that drafted him in front office wanted him to become this dynamic player like Steph Curry. He wasn't that. Steph is a 40+% 3-point shooter, just obviously the best shooter of all time. Trae's just not that, but he's very effective. And I think, like, as you see in, Memphis with Ja Morant, I think not having that point guard that scores 30, I think it sometimes hurts you when you're trying to score 30. I think when you lower it down to the low mid-20s and then really, get off the ball a little bit more and set up your teammates. I mean, with Jalen Johnson's playing really well. DeAndre Hunter's finally back. Bogdanovich is back. Capella's still in that lob role. Like, when you could set those guys up early and then be aggressive looking to score as well, but really going into it where I'm going to set these guys up first, set the table early in the game, and then I could really start dominating the ball a little bit more as the game goes on. I think you're way more effective for your team. And he's always been a decent assist guy. Now I think now that he sort of, he had that 12 assists, that thing that we talked about last week about him being the highest assist guy in the last 30 years since Stockton in one season. I think that, probably just wants to hit that goal all the time. But I think it really helps their team because he's not good enough to be an ISO guy to carry your team, but he's good enough to score in bunches, but also set your guys up because he does have a high IQ. I think they're doing really well. Those guys are, like you said, the last couple of weeks have had, they've had a lot of success for sure. And then, obviously we talk about Dyson Daniels all the time, being that guy off, that could come in, steals, give you energy, scoring the ball a little bit better, 13 and a half a game. So been an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, and Trae Young's numbers are interesting. He's improved his assist average every season since his rookie year. So 8.1 in his first season, then he goes to 9.3, then 9.4, 9.7, 10.2, 10.8. Now he's at 12.0, leading the league. Look, his 3-point percentage, as you touched on, his best year was in 21-22, which was 38%. He's generally in the lower quadrant of the 30s. He's at a 36%. Then he's at this season he's at 31%. Last season he was at 37%. So, yeah, a decent kind of. What's the league average right now, Pro? Do you know? Is it 35, 36? Is that the league average
for threes? It's about 36 and a half. That's usually the average for threes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's about league average, but his assist numbers have improved. And look, the Hawks, not a team that we were all high on. They've won 6 straight, in the East. Like we've said from the start, if you go on a 5-game win streak in the East, you're probably going to crack the top 6 no matter where you are. It's just the way the East is set out at the moment. It's not great. But 7th place is finally above 500, so at least they've got that going for them. But then 8, 9, 10 is a wash. Got 10 and 15 Chicago Bulls. So Atlanta in 5th and rolling, which is nice to see. Who'd you have?
Bogues, I had the Memphis Grizzlies, and look, I've been on in the last few weeks about being really good and sort of having a great season in comparison to last year. Yeah, they had a lot of injuries last year, but this year, not only do they have their guys back, they're third. They're third. I think they might even be tied for second in the West. But Bogues, they are a giant slayer. They beat Boston last night at Boston. They should have beat Dallas. They were up almost double digits with a few minutes left, and they made a couple of costly errors. They lost on the road, but every game you look, it doesn't matter who they play. If it's Oklahoma, it could be Cleveland, Boston, Dallas, Houston, you name it, they're in the games. Now they may not win them all, but right now they're at 16-8, but they're playing, and it's really the way they're playing. And we talked about their offense. Their coach they got from Paris EuroLeague last year. They brought in Nola Roach to really shape their offense and to sort of change what they're doing. I sent you the offensive stuff, not liking pick and roll. They sort of didn't go that route, but it's more like just attacking off the dribble and passing the ball. The biggest thing that I think Taylor Jenkins has done is it doesn't matter what offense they're running, they're embracing passing the ball and moving the ball. Last year, they're 28th in the league in assists. This year, they've been first for most of the year. Now they're third, but they're averaging 30 assists a game. It's a huge jump, and you watch them play. I watched them play a couple of games last week, this past week, and they do pick and rolls and things, but they just share the ball. We're talking about, sort of the change in Trae Young's game, and I mentioned about Ja Morant and I was listening to the broadcast at Dallas, and they were saying, well, he's not as effective this year, Ja, only averaging 21 a game. Yeah, but the guy's averaging 9 assists, and he's off the ball a lot. And I think that that's a huge change for that team. And I think that you're going to see this offense run more and more across the league. In the next 5 years, I bet almost half the teams are going to run it. Remember when you guys are running split action, and you sort of were you're the face of the league, and you know how everybody's a copycat as far as like doing things that winning teams do, and then everybody want to run split action. I think this offense with more attacking off the dribble, more space on the floor, and look, they're third in scoring, they're top 5 in field goal percentage, they're number 1 in blocks. I think they're number 1 in paint or rim points. I forgot which one. They're rebounding the top 5, offensive rebounding top 3. So they're playing a different style, but they're just sharing the ball, and they've got all they just spread you out. And the weird thing about it, Bogues, they're doing all of this, and they're middle of the pack in 3-pointers made, 3-pointers attempted, and 3-point percentage. So they're not just jacking up. We've been seeing a lot of negative feedback about the NBA in the last couple of weeks about the style of play, but they're really just spreading you out, sharing the ball. And you could see it's a different type of basketball. And I'll tell you what, they may not have the star power to win it, but they definitely have a good enough team to get to the conference final, in my opinion.
Yeah, the copycat stuff, they have to win it or at least make the finals before that happens.
Yeah.
So as we know, the teams that win it, other teams will look at that, emulate it. I just like them. I like them because they play D and they have defenders. They have guys that can, like Bain's a very, very good defender. Marcus Smart's a very good defender. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a very good defender. That's three that play the bulk of your minutes. Then you got Ja Morant, who's not a horrible defender. I mean, he's obviously doesn't love contact, but he's going to get up and in. He's a steals guy. You got Clark coming off the bench. Edie's a big rim presence. What I also liked about Memphis over the course of the last month is the injuries that they had. They didn't let it affect their play. They were still stealing wins with no Ja Morant.
Right.
They were stealing wins with no Ja Morant and Desmond Bain in lineups. Like, Scottie Pippen Jr. played a huge role in that. LaRavia is a very, very good player that plays very hard. Wells is playing well. They're very well balanced. I agree with you. I think they're probably one star player away from really contending for a championship and being in the mix of the top four in the league. But they're building something special there, and it looks good. I love the way they play, and I just like teams. If you've got three legitimate defenders that are playing, generally two on the perimeter and one in the paint, that are playing the 30 minutes ballpark, you got a chance in the league. We all know that, especially in the regular season. So I think it's a good one. I'm high on Memphis. I had them in my top four for that reason. I think they'll be a tough beat in a long, grindy playoff series as well. And that's where I think this team will be valuable is in a 7-game series. They have guys that can shut you down. They have multiple weapons now offensively. But still maybe one star away. It'll be interesting to see if they do make a move. And Marcus Smart is the guy that has gone from a starting role to a backup role. Is that someone they move to try to get another piece, take it along with maybe a pick or a young guy? Who knows? But I like Memphis for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point about, and you got to be looking at this stuff when you're teams that are trying to make a jump up a little bit. Marcus Smart's going to be a guy they probably look to move, not definitely, but look, they got Gigi Jackson there, who was a really good rookie last year. He hurt himself early in camp and averaging 14-4 last year, and he's a really good player. One of the top high school players in the country. Went 1 year at South Carolina and then went to the league. He's very effective. And don't forget, like, the emergence of Scottie Pippen Jr. They've done an unbelievable job. And a friend of yours and mine, Joe Boylan, is heading up their player development as well. And he does a lot with player development. And look, Pippen, Wells are two guys. Like, I thought Pippen was going to be out of the league when he was at the Lakers. I just didn't really like his game. They've really resurrected what he's been doing. And then you get Wells and Gigi Jackson. Those are three guys off the bench that are all under rookie deals, are all, they're all low pay guys. But Gigi Jackson is probably a guy who could be a really good NBA starter. Pippen's probably one of those rotation guys, and Wells has started a ton of games for them already. So they're an exciting team for sure. And the way they play, I just love the fact they share the ball. You touched on the defensive side. So yeah, it's been a pretty good first 25 games or so.
For sure. And what I like is also the Ja Morant thing. He has mentioned that he's trying to not get in the lane and throw it. Oh, he had a big dunk the other night. That reverse was really
last
nice.
night. Literally 24 hours after he said it.
Yeah, said something along the lines of he's trying not to get in there and posterize people as much because he's trying to stay healthy. And I think it's right. Like, I think that's what did D Rose in. That's what did a few guys in. Like, that constant. At the end of the day, he's light, weight-wise, skinny, super athletic guy that has to contend with some of the big fellas in there that are going to hit him. They'll want to get dunked on there, there is a risk of injury there, but it does take away the way he plays. But I think there's a smartness in it. If we're up 15 in the fourth, 6 minutes left, do I go in there and try to post to someone? I'm probably going to get hammered, right? So, like, just being smart with it, I think they're things that he can learn from. But yeah, it was funny that he said that and then literally had one of the dunks of the season within a day of saying it.
And for him, it's the landing. I think with D Rose, it was always the hard landings when those guys were so explosive. Zion, it's the landings, and Westbrook landing. It's not, being in the air, you could definitely get messed up in the air, but the landing part and just a heavy, hard hitting on your feet, on
longer
your joints
fall,
and
right?
knees.
Like the smaller guys have a longer fall. Like I didn't have to get up that high to get to the rim, right? When you look at the highlights, and they look so good with D Rose and Ja and Westbrook because they're getting off the floor so much. That's a much greater. It's double the fall that us big fellas would have, and we mess ourselves up coming to the floor. So, yeah, it's just an interesting one that he's at least cognizant of it, and you hope he stays healthy because he's a phenomenal talent to watch and definitely a price of admission guy, whether their team is good or bad. My team of the week, you probably have the same one, the Lakers. They've been bad. No, you got a different one. Okay, well, I'm going the Lakers. I think lost 3 straight. They're 12-11. They've slid right down to where we thought they'd be, bro. Thankfully, we looked like idiots in the first month of the season. They were first for like 3 weeks. Like, what the hell's going on here? They had that nice little home push, which made things nice for them. But they just look like a rabble. And you know, they lost to Atlanta by 2 last game. They lost to Miami by 40. They lost to Minnesota by 29. Being blown out on the road. They play okay at home. They got a lucky win at Utah by 1 point, and OKC before that they lost to. But it's the way they're losing. Like, I look at with all teams, NBA, NBL. When I look at teams that I think can be good or will eventually be good, is I look at identity and what is your identity as a team. You know, we spoke about Memphis. It's high tempo ball movement offense, and they're going to guard, right? You know that going in. They got two or three good perimeter defenders. They're going to put in our best players. We got to free them up, and they've got rim presence. We've got to figure out how to counter that. You know, going in, what are you doing against the Lakers? What's their identity when you're scouting them? I don't know. I don't know what it is right now. Are you trying to be a defensive team? Are you trying to be an offensive team? Are you? You know, early on, they're force-feeding Davis. They've kind of gone, I don't know whether it's strategic or whatever the hell's going on. That's not happening as much. They're 17th in points per game. They're 27th in rebounds per game. They're 12th in assists per game. And they're 23rd in opponents' points per game. So not good numbers. You factor that in with the numbers around LeBron. There was all the hoorah about him missing all those threes. That happens. You're getting shooting slumps. Shit happens. Even the best shooters, it happens too. But he, ended up missing 20-something straight threes. That's not the issue. The issue is this is the first season, pro, that LeBron's been a negative for his team while he's on the floor. Has never happened in his career, pro. So they take it by per 100 possessions, 21.1 possessions per 100 better without LeBron. So that's massive. That's a lot of points you're giving up when he's on the floor, and then that can factor into him, which he has not been great defensively. There's numerous clips floating around, especially the NBA Cup games, not getting back on D when they were down 10 late because the percentage matters. Other games, the Atlanta Hawks games, just floating around on defense when they turn it over, not sprinting back, guys getting walk-up threes because of it. He's always been an interesting defender off the ball. Like, he has, his tendencies are to fall asleep and get his rest at that end. But then every now and then he'll get a steal and get that nice steal interception or chase down block. But I think that's countered with how poor he can be within your team concept sometimes. But they look like a rabble, and welcome to coaching, JJ. That's what do you do now, pro? What do you do? Your best player, a guy that can basically ruin your career media-wise as a coach, a guy that has notoriously probably done that to a few coaches, he's done it to players, is one of your worst players when on the floor as far as what the analytics say, and we know this is an analytics era in the NBA. Do you tweak those minutes? Do you have a conversation with him to play harder and, hey, man, these are what the numbers are saying? Do you get some other lineups out there? There's also the talk about LeBron trying to play 82. I just saw JJ Redick made some comments around we might need to revisit that because it's clear that he's tired. Welcome to coaching in the NBA. What are you going to do, JJ Redick?
Yeah, Bogues, it's a little bit of a problem, right? I mean, they reminded me, if you ever watched the movie Perfect Storm, when, with Mark Wahlberg, they're in the fucking middle of the fucking storm, and early in the season, they saw that little patch of sunlight. They thought the fucking storm was going to be over, and the NBA season just fucking swallows that up, and they all fucking die at the end. Spoiler alert. And that's basically what they were doing. They have a little bit of success. Everyone's like, they're like the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody thinks the Lakers the last few years were going to win, and everybody's like, they're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win. But look at their fucking roster. They have a better chance of being like a top 3 team in the West as I do being in fucking a Calvin Klein ad next month. I mean, they're just not good. And they're not terrible, but they're just not good. The way they play, look, with LeBron, Davis, and Russell, you're going to be heavy ISO, right? So the ball's not going to move as much. Defensively, they don't really have any defensive stoppers. You got Davis protecting the rim. LeBron really hasn't been that defender in a few years. That's just not his thing. Hachimura tries. I think one of the best defenders is Max Christie coming off the bench. So I think they probably need to do a little bit more with Christie. I would put Christie in the starting lineup to give him some defense on the ball a little bit more. I mean, Christie's not exactly Bruce Bowen, but he's smart, he's long, athletic, he's got size, but they need to do something else. They don't really have much more. This isn't like college where you could just recruit 3 McDonald's All-Americans. It's that you have what you have. You've got very little trade value. Dalton Connect has been a really good, bright spot, young kid, rookie they drafted out of Tennessee, but they just don't have that talent to do it, right? They don't move the ball. LeBron is going to be heavy ISO. He's got to get off the ball a little bit, but I think it's more defensively anyway. So they need to do something. But like their bench, besides Christie, they don't really have a lot of defense coming off the bench. Jared Vanderbilt's been out all year. It's tough, and you're not really going to have that conversation with LeBron being, hey, you got to play harder or anything like that. I will give LeBron credit. I've never heard him say this before, but he actually backed up a head coach in the media when they were asking him about like why they're playing badly. And he goes, it's on us. It's not on, like, usually he sort of shies away from those questions and doesn't really take a stand with the coaches. Usually just lets those guys sink. He actually stood up a little bit and was like, hey, it's not on the coaches. This is on us. They gotta play better, but they don't have a ton of shooting, Bogues, right? Like Austin Reeves could make shots, that's like Connect could make shots.
Yeah, the Vincent deal, ouch. Yeah, he just doesn't look the same.
Vincent hasn't looked good. So, Bogues, they're in a heap of fucking trouble. But that's what basically, if you're not on LeBron's bandwagon in the media, which there aren't many people, most people are mesmerized by him and they never say anything negative about the guy. And I'm not saying this is negative, but like if you just look at it cleanly, it's just they don't really have it. They don't have that talent. They don't have the trade pieces to get them another player, to really, sort of energize his team. So it's going to be tough. Look, LeBron battles. He does the best he can. He's 40 years old.
He's old, man. That's the thing. Age is undefeated. You can't play both ends the way he did 10 years ago. And that's where the minutes need to get tweaked by JJ, but that's a tough conversation and a tough thing to do. That's why I'm saying, welcome to coaching the NBA. What are you going to do? They're better with LeBron playing less minutes. It's clear in the analytics.
Remember last year, Ham tried to do that last year with him. And he didn't like it.
It went real well. Yeah, exactly. But, and look, to your point, I mean, they don't really have much assets. I think probably the only assets they have that someone would take or circle is maybe Austin Reeves, 1 year left on his deal with a player option the year after. And then you got Connect. They're probably the only two I'd look at. Maybe Christie, but he's locked into his rookie deal, right? Till 27, 28.
He's not. He's got $8 million a year. Yep. Yeah, 4 years, 32.
But, I mean, they're probably your three guys, right? Hachimura, maybe Russell's a free agent. Davis is there and LeBron are there till they're. I mean, Davis is there for the next 4 years and LeBron's either retiring or playing one more year. So it's like there's not much else there. Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish. Like maybe you can go after Bronny James and get something for that. I don't know. Maybe maybe Boston will take that. Who knows?
But bump. No. What I would think they're gonna do, Bogues, is I don't think they're gonna trade Connect because he's rookie deal. What I think will happen if I'm them, I'm just saying fuck off. I'm saying, look, LeBron's gonna, after this is it with the LeBron thing. We're gonna start over. Now, Lakers never think that way. They always think that, that like they're one move away. It just is what it is. So I would just let it go. I would say, fuck it. We're not making any deals to trade young assets. The only assets young, in my opinion, they have, Hachimura is not bad. You got Austin Reeves and Connect, and you got Max Christie, right? Davis is still going to be high level for a few more years before he starts going south. So what you do is you either let it go and just let these guys go off the books and then just start over, and you build around a couple of young guys and go forward with it. which I don't know if they're going to do that, or you attach Vanderbilt and Reeves and try to get something pretty good, from somebody that has a player that's a little disgruntled, that's a higher level player than Austin Reeves. And I think with connecting, Vanderbilt's deal that's expiring soon in Austin Reeves, you can get something really good. Or I don't think you're going to get a lot for Connect, but you attach Connect because Connect's rookie salary is going to make him almost impossible to trade to get equal value. You're definitely going to attach Vanderbilt. Maybe Gabe Vincent, but definitely Vanderbilt, and then either Reeves or Connect to get something. Maybe Hachimura, but they'll do 2 players for 1, in my opinion, if they're going to do anything at all. But there's really no move. They're about 3 or 4 moves away. They can't, for this team. They're not looking good right now. They're literally the Titanic before they start playing the violin to after they hit the iceberg. They're sort of in the middle. If you're a Titanic buff, that's where they are in the Titanic movie. It's not exactly DiCaprio getting pushed off the door, but they're really in the middle of that. They're sinking fast.
The Ingram's the other one that's been rumored to be back there. The names are circling around him, but I think that he's just signed with Clutch. He's just signed with Clutch, so do the math.
And plus, what are you going to trade?
You just said maybe Hachimura X someone, and then if he's going to extend there, maybe. And it's just funny because full circle. He was there. He basically left because of the whole LeBron thing.
They traded him, so
part of the Davis deal. So
yeah.
And then stayed over there. But he's another one they're circling, which is an interesting name. Who'd you have this week?
I had the Denver Nuggets. Bogues, you lose to the Washington Wizards. It's straight to South Korea for you, my friend. It's not. I don't care who you are. You don't go to the EuroLeague. You don't go to the ACB. You don't go to Liga Basket in Italy. You go right to South Korea, and that's it. But no, I mean they're struggling. But if you want to be honest about it, there's no way that the Denver Nuggets should lose to the Washington Wizards. I mean, hey, great for the Washington Wizards not getting to 20 losses in a row. But look, when you lose to those guys, it's a tough deal. But it's just one of those things.
They are pummeling the Hawks right now, pro. So they're beating the Hawks by 30 at the moment. So they've smacked my team of the week, and they're countering your weak claim. So, but I get it. You lose to the Washington Wizards. You go down, but Jokic is balling, man. He had
dude.
He's the only one. He's the only one trying to hey, man, we need to beat the Wizards. I've got 56. Can some of you other guys help me out a little bit?
In my fantasy team, I had the number 1 pick this year, and I went with Luka, and I had Jokic staring me right in the face, but I was gonna go with Luka. Just that's my guy, and fuck. I looked up, he had 56 the other night, and I'm like, Jesus.
41, 11, and 7 right now with 10 minutes left. He'll be out. He should be out of the line. They're up by 30.
How good is he, though? Seriously.
He's
we could do 3 podcasts on him, how good that fucking guy is. It's amazing, man.
Yeah, just amazing. Guys genuinely want to play with him and have a joy. I mean, they're not clicking right now. Jamal Murray's just, that's the one you look at when you look at their roster and you're like, what is going on with Jamal Murray? He just does not look good. Does not look good at all.
And the problem for them, Bogues, it's a sin because with Jokic, you expect to be he's like Larry Bird. You expect to put any type of player around him and you're going to be a championship contender. The problem is, I've never been a Murray fan. I mean, he's had good years, I'll admit that, but I've never been a huge fan. You paid him big money. You paid Michael Porter Jr. huge money, and Aaron Gordon's getting big money. The problem is, we talked about this endless times in the podcast, who the fuck are you going to move to get, no one's taking Jamal Murray who's been an injury risk. They're not giving you, equal value or more, right? Michael Porter Jr., you'll get a little something, but that's a big contract to take on with teams this year with tax aprons and things like that. They're not using really good cap room to absorb them, and they're not giving you great players in return. And Aaron Gordon's that nice, solid piece. But again, that's the problem they're going to have. You're going to have to just keep developing guys like like Peyton Watson and Strother and Christian Brown, like those type of guys, you got to keep on developing and putting in your lineup around those guys. The problem is you never draft high enough to get a really good player unless you get a Dalton Connect type player late in the first round. So it'll be
And they're
interesting,
notorious.
but
They're notorious for staying under the threshold
yeah,
of the luxury tax, which is fair enough. But you look at Murray's numbers. It's the least amount of points he has averaged since his rookie year.
yeah,
17.8 at the moment. It's his second worst field goal percentage of his season of his career to date. So that was his rookie year. That was worse. It's his worst 3-point percentage of his career. So yeah, the numbers aren't lying. His assists are better, 6.2 assists a night. He had 6.5 last season. But yeah, I mean, it just looks clunky, and you can see it. Like, it just doesn't look good. I mean, I know he likes to ISO ball a lot, and we saw that in the Lakers series a couple of years ago and got him over the line with some big shots. But a steady diet of that just doesn't work in this league, and he's one of those guys. I mean, 6.4 makes to 15 attempts is wild. So especially when you got a guy like Jokic that will get you an easy look or two. Like you just, all you got to do is weak side cut and he's going to find you. So they're up and down like a yo-yo. They started bad. They got a nice little run going, and now they're back in that little trying to find themselves. I think Russ has been decent for him. He started off poorly, but he's come kind of good with some energy and some effort, and had a few high assist games. But they'll be in the mix somewhere. But it's looking like playing the more and more we go on. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on. All right, just a few other items we'll get to. Jaylen Brown. I don't know if you saw his comments on consistency of lineups, pro. That was pretty interesting.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Basically came out and just said exactly what I've been saying for the last 5 years, and you've somewhat co-signed. But just it's hard. Quote: "It's hard for teams to be great if their stars don't play back-to-backs. You need consistency in your lineups," and I totally agree. And this is coming from a guy on a number one seed. You got to play together. You got to, and he went on to further say that along the lines of you gotta eat a shit sandwich every now and then together in a back-to-back. Second night of a back-to-back, you get blown out by 30. What do we know about each other? How do we adjust? Are we staying together? How's the camaraderie, the culture? Are we all going our separate ways? What are we doing? They're battles that you learn from along the way, and they build. It's like a swear jar in your house. They build equity. They build up, and then you can use it for greater good going into a playoffs, right? And that's what some of these teams that we've seen historically, the Clippers and now the 76ers, it looks clunky when they're all back together because they haven't played together. It's not rocket science. You got to get the runs on the board. Like we've said, we've beaten this dead horse to death, but no one really practices anymore, so you're not getting it at that end of the floor. And even if you are, there's still the argument that you need to do it when the lights are on. And I really like that comment from Jaylen Brown, considering that he's on the number one seed. He's not on a team that's seventh and they have to play together. They can't rest. And look, they are younger, maybe a bit hypocritical because they are a younger squad, but even Horford's not doing that. They've got some older guys in that roster, Drew Holiday, that don't want to take those rest nights. And they'll do it strategically towards the end of the season. I believe that 100% they will, but it'll be, we've got 4 and 5, we're going to give you one of those, or we've got 10 games in the next 3 weeks. We're gonna strategically give a couple of you guys rest going into a playoffs, and that's fine. That's more than okay. But I think just co-signs what we've been saying for a while, pro.
I totally agree. I think that, look, if I was running a team, and obviously I would consult with my doctors and medical team, as you should, but like I really feel as though that if you have back-to-backs, and I understand we've all been through back-to-backs, they're tough, especially if you have like a tough schedule a week or two in advance, and then you head into a back-to-back, and you play it, especially if you're going home away. So like you get on a plane that night, you get in late, you probably get in at 1:30 in the morning, depending on where you're going, and then you sleep for a few hours, you go through a little meeting. You usually don't meet. You probably don't meet until like 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and then you go on the bus to go to your game. So it is a little bit tough, and I understand the wear and tear of a season. But if I was running an NBA team, I would definitely have it where my guys would play back to back, and then maybe not play in 2 straight back to backs. So if I had a back to back, November 5th and 6th, and I have another one maybe the 18th and 19th. I'll say, okay, you guys could rest on the 19th. Obviously you don't practice a lot anyway, so we'll keep that schedule going. But the actual, and I agree with the whole lineup thing. I do agree that you need to rest your guys, and I don't really, as long as it's good, it looks good heading into the playoffs. But if you're just resting all the time, like some of these teams do, it is a problem. So I think that
when you're 5 and whatever Philly is, the Clippers were in the same spot back when we don't care about home court. Well, it's mattered because you guys didn't win shit. So if you're Boston, arguably Boston could be on the Philly diet and no one would blink an eye because they're number one. When you're up against it, you're not even in a plane as we speak, or you're just clawing for a playing spot. You guys need to play together, and it's a new team. Boston's the one team that could do it. That's why I found these comments interesting. They're the one team that you could do it because they've played together for so long. It's automatic. They got bench guys that will step up and whatever. Philly haven't played together. The Clippers didn't play together when they had all their guys, that whole big three. They didn't play enough time together and figure out how to play,
I do want to see I do want to go see Michael J. Fox in the dock and go to 1.21 gigawatts and go on my time machine. And I want to fast forward 7 years when Jalen's like 35, and I want to see how I want to hear him talk about playing back to backs and see what he does. But I totally agree, folks. This team's a dynasty waiting to happen, and those guys are just doing everything well and good. They're well coached, and they got just got a great team. And they like playing with each other. Probably the only guy that they'll probably sit out a lot. They'll probably is Kristaps Porzingis just to make sure he's good going into the playoffs. But I would think that a majority of the rotation plays every day. Horford, Brown, White, Holiday, Tatum, the Hornet.
You got the equity to do it. You're number one seed. You're coming off a chip. You can do it. No problem. I got no problem with them doing it. I just found the comments interesting because they're the one team that could do it that isn't doing it. I've got a problem with the Phillies of the world and these kind of teams.
Clippers
that are notoriously doing it. They haven't won shit. Like if the Clippers came off a championship and did what they did, I'd be like, cool, like no problem.
I'll tell you what though, Bogues, the Clippers are playing well.
They are playing really well.
I mean, not to change the subject, but like they're role player central. They're
Harden's getting sleep apparently. That's why. I don't know if you saw that. He said,
I didn't see that.
It's a legit thing. He's apparently sleeping this season. He consulted a sleep. Well, who would have thought fucking going to clubs till 6 a.m. and functioning on 3 hours sleep nightly while throwing dollar bills in the air all season long would harm your body and your health? Fucking shocker.
Folks, he gets 17 and a half minutes of sleep a game. The possessions that he's on defense, he sleeps for 17 minutes a game. But they've
been playing well. They're playing really well.
And Coffee, Jones, those guys.
Well, Ty Lue's up. He's got to be up there in Coach of the Year. I mean, it's a separate discussion, but if they make the 6, that's Coach of the Year for Ty Lue, in my opinion. I think it's up there. I know you got other squads that are dominating. You got Boston doing really well, Cleveland as well, obviously with their record. Maybe Cleveland take it, but. I mean, I like these teams. Like they're all of us. Everyone picked them out of the plane. Like they're somewhere in the 11 to 15. Everyone expected Cleveland to be a top 3, top 4 for the most part. So he's got to be up there in the consideration. I believe anyway.
The problem is all these fucking coaches of years get shit canned within 2 years. So he's probably
Orlando's in the running. Mosley's in the running as well. Considering what
no one wants that award.
Yeah, no one wants that award. So. What else do we have? Franz Wagner, he's injured. We'll get to some of his numbers in useful, useless, but huge test for them, bro. Like when they lost Banchero, they somehow have kept winning. This one's a big loss. I think Banchero's coming back, or has he played a game yet? I don't know if he's back yet.
I don't
think
so.
Soon. Not yet. So they lose both of those guys. If they continue to win, then you got Mosley. You're talking about Mosley in that same conversation because – I don't even know how they've managed to continue on their progress after losing, one of the biggest upcoming stars in the NBA this season and a guy that was balling, and they've just trotted on like nothing's happened and continue to get wins.
Yeah, if they do continue to win without him, I would name Mosley the commissioner of the league and give him coach of the decade. He could be president of the United States, whatever the fuck he wants to. If you're going to win without those two guys, that's amazing. I mean, you're going to have to try to replace with both those guys, 53 points and like 14 rebounds a night and like 11 to 12 assists.
Both their playmakers, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
even without the stats, they're the guys that are getting doubled and creating stuff. He's out for a minimum of a month with a torn oblique, so that could go anywhere from a month to 2. You hope he's back soon. How's this for a shocker pro? Lonzo Ball believes his Triple B shoes could have led to his first meniscus tear.
Unfucking believable, bro. That's fucking amazing. Now, I don't know anything about shoes and how it impacts the knee. I remember when Nike thought they were shooing to sign Grant Hill, and he ended up going to Fila, and he had foot problems. He had foot problems, obviously, his whole career after that, and they blamed the shoe, of course. And with Ball, with the knee injury, that's unbelievable. The stuff is that I'll tell you what. I mean, the dad did promote the hell out of his kids, and I don't agree with a lot of stuff that he did, but he had a lot of balls doing what he did. But the shoe thing, Bogues, I mean, that fucking thing was a piece of shit. Remember he was selling them for like $350 or $400.
So I was in LA his rookie year. I think it was rookie year. And they were like boats. Those things. They were like, they were not well made. He was trying to not wear them. I don't know if you remember that. He was trying to. No. And then I think he got in trouble with his business people and his dad. And you hate to see it. Look, most players wear orthotics anyway, for those out there wondering. Like, so the shoes shouldn't matter too much, but they matter a little bit. I'm not saying that Nike's going to prevent you, if you did the numbers, most of the players are in Nikes, and, most of the injuries would be in Nikes when you look at just sheer numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't help. This is a new shoe to market. It was more of a fashion kind of apparel type brand with basketball mixed in, but they weren't tried and tested over a number of years. Nike still has better technology than all the shoe companies out there because they've been in the market for so long. It's just common sense, right? Oh shit, we need to thicken the heel here. We need to lighten the foot here, and like I said, guys have fully made orthotics that mold to their foot that we put the molds in the shoes with. So it's just interesting that he's reminiscing on the old times because it could have played a little bit of a factor. I think that he also mentioned they played a lot on hardcourt back in the day, but so did a lot of guys. I did as well. A lot of people did as well, but that can definitely have a bit of a factor as well. But I think the shoes definitely, he was basically a guinea pig as a lottery pick in one of the biggest franchises of all time, and just guinea pigging some shoes around to try to. How much would that move the needle money wise? I mean, they made some money for the family, but nothing compared to his NBA contract.
No, look, Bogues, I don't care if you're an NBA player or you're just a high school kid. You always go with a shoe that has really good technology in the shoe. It won't prevent you from getting hurt, like you said. Great point. But I consult my WNBA players, my all types of NBA players, especially on the lower end that could take go to one of these lower end shoe companies because they're going to give them $50,000 more, $100,000 more. I said, you're really the money really matters to you that much where you're going to take an extra 50, 75 grand and really roll the dice that you're not going to get hurt with some of this stuff. Like Nike, I've done a lot of work for Nike since 1996, and visiting their campus and see what goes into their shoe production, as far as the technology in the research and design that they put into their shoe compared to look, if you're going to go Nike to Adidas or Nike New Balance or something like that, a Reebok, whatever, those are reputable companies that put a lot of time and resources into research. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that had anything to do with his knee, but obviously he's going to say it because he's going to say it. But
even just mentally playing in those shits mentally, you'd be thinking I'm not wearing the best. I don't know if it had a play on him, but it was just interesting that he mentioned it. So hopefully he can get healthy and stay out there long term. Dwight Breath is receiving interest, so just mention that as an Aussie, there's some interest there. He's obviously not playing a whole lot. They've got Aiden, who got benched because I don't know if you saw Chauncey Billups was asked why didn't you generally play him for 2 minutes, and he said he didn't like the spirit he was playing with or something like that. He said didn't like the way he was playing, so that was interesting. And they got the other rookie. Is it Klingon? Is that his last name?
Klingon, Klingon. Yeah, they got Klingon. Well, Klingon's the future of their team. I don't think there's going to be really much time for especially with Ayton and Robert Williams there. You don't know how long Robert Williams is going to be healthy for just because of what he's been battling the last few years. But yeah, DeAndre Ayton's definitely on the way out at some point. And Reith, it's especially 4 centers. Nobody wants to play with centers these days, and they got 4 of them on the team. It's gonna be really hard for him to get time. So I would assume if there is a good offer, solid from from Australia or from another league, that if he wants to go, they'll probably let him go with his release. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully he'll get an offer somewhere that that he could play and continue his career like that and keep going.
Yeah, I agree. He can definitely help someone off the bench. Shoots the 3 ball, can protect the rim a little bit. Finally, Jimmy Butler trades have started to kind of heat up, at least the rumors a little bit. It'd be interesting to see where he ends up, Houston and Dallas. But I think Dallas just so cap strapped that I don't know how they make that work. But they're the two that are rumored. I mean, Butler would fit in very, very well in Houston with a hard-nosed coach with Ime. They kind of have similar personalities. They'd clash, I think, at some point, but I think it'd be a good thing. But do you think he remains in Miami to end the season, or do you think they move away?
Bogues, they got to do something. The problem is, what do you get for him, and does it really make you that much better, or are you just going to go full tank mode and just go with your young guys? They don't have great young players. They got decent young players. Um, And also, what are you gonna get back? In Dallas, obviously you're gonna have to have salary to go back with it. I mean, you're not gonna trade anybody. You're not gonna trade anybody in your top 3. You're not gonna trade Lively. So probably the trade's gonna center around Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, so they could play Najee Marshall
Yeah.
and Hardy more. So those guys, that trade will be centered around those 2 guys. And the thing is, like, if you're Miami, it's like rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. Like, you could get Gafford as a pretty good shot blocker, but you have Bam already. So what are you going to do there? You're just going to play
Well,
Bam
Houston
at
has
4.
some pieces then. Houston would be the other
Now,
one.
but Houston's got pieces. So like, we go to Houston's roster, and what are you going to give up? Like Jabari Smith. Like, I don't know. I guess he gets you over the hump for sure. They are playing great, from where they are. Like, who are you going to trade to make that work? You're not giving up Reed Shepard, even though he hasn't played well, but he's, top. He's a lottery pick. You got to keep him going. You go with, like, obviously Steven Adams will probably be a contract that they look to move because because you got to have salaries to make the trade work with Butler. The question is, what asset are you going to leave with?
And do you take the risk of bringing a Butler personality into a young squad? That's the other issue with Houston, right? Like, it's like he's notorious for going in and ruffling feathers and, you know what I mean, and getting after guys. Do you want that around a younger squad? That's the other one.
Yeah, and you sort of have that with Dylan Brooks, right? And I'm not crazy about the team itself, but I mean, they're top 4 in the West right now. They're playing well, and they sort of have a good thing going for sure. But like, my thing is, you bring that outside presence in, you don't really need it as of now. And then do you have to deal, like, Jabari Smith isn't a great player, but he's a solid 11-7 guy. Tari Eason gives him a lot of energy. Cam Whitmore really hasn't played much this year. Amen Thompson, he's 11-7, and he's a player they're probably going to use in the future. I'm not a huge fan, but he is good. Like, I just don't see what you're going to give up. You're not giving up Green. You're not giving up Brooks. You're not giving up Van Vliet. You're definitely not giving up Şengün. So, like, who are you giving up? Probably Adams because of his contract. Then you're going to have to give up a young piece. That's the thing. Like, I've read that too about the trade to possible Houston and Dallas. I just don't see those guys. Maybe Dallas does it, to get a little bit more grittiness. And, PJ Washington's has been up and down, and, Gafford's good, but they got Lively there. So maybe I don't see it. Where do you see it, Bogues? Like, if you're looking at it, what do you think from those 2 teams? What do you think has the better chance of getting the guy based on what they have and willing to give up?
I think Houston's got a better chance because they've got some good young pieces they could include if they had to. I just don't know how he fits in with Dallas. I just don't understand why they would go that route. When you got Jimmy, then, Luke is healthy. The ball's in his hands for 60% of the time. Then it's in Kyrie's for 30%, and the rest of the scraps are going to PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, and some bigs on some rolls.
Yeah.
What do you need Jimmy there for?
Yeah.
I don't understand the link. I think he's definitely a better fit. Maybe you throw Brooks and X and some, XY, and then get Jimmy, and you replace toughness for toughness, but a better skilled toughness guy. That would work. But I think Houston's in a better position. Whether it happens or not, who knows? But I'm just always weary about bringing in a strong locker room personality around a team that's playing well and is super young and immature. It could go either way. You could have a young star that gets pissed off and then wants to add in a year or two, which is kind of what happened in Minnesota, right? Minnesota kind of went through all that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. In Dallas, they won 7. They've won 7 in a row. They're rolling. I think it's all everything's pointing towards an Oklahoma City Dallas Western Conference Final. And in my opinion, I think they're gonna. You bring in a guy. Look, if I'm Dallas and I bring him in, I'm bringing him off the bench, to be honest with you. And he's not going to probably want to do that. But for me, that's where he fits the best. Like the way where he is in his career, you could save him with the minutes. You could still play him 25 to 28 minutes. You just got to be creative with your rotations. But that's what I want him. I'd probably put him in Dallas first, and I'd probably put him in Dallas first before Houston. Houston's just sort of playing well, and like you said, they're young, and Brooks for Miami would make sense because that toughness and that's him. But I don't know, man. They're just playing well. Like I wouldn't want to mess anything up in Houston. They got, they just redid Green, Jabari Smith and Jabari Smith rookie deals. Şengün, I think he re-signed, but I still think he's on a rookie deal for this year. Eason Young playing well.
Free Jock Lando.
Yeah, free him with minutes.
Get him Miami. Free him to Miami in that deal.
I don't think he's got enough wife beaters, and that mullet won't do well in Miami.
I'll do real well. He's got the topless Bronco that he bought. That nice little Ford Bronco.
So you know all this stuff with Jog. I just
I think you posted online. If you followed him, you'd know. Just don't. Just take those in. Just as long as he pays your invoices, you're happy. You don't even follow the guy on social media, bro.
Fucking asshole.
All right, let's move on. To Jimmy Butler thing. We'll see how it plays out. Just interesting. All right, useful or useless. I've got a couple of friends. Wagner ones. So this season, he's leading the Magic in points, leading the Magic in rebounds, leading the Magic in assists, and leading the Magic in steals. And he's out until 2025 at least. Useful or useless.
Where the fuck are you going with that, Bogues? I don't know where you're going with that stat though. He's out till 2025. What's the significance of the numbers versus that?
Well, they've lost their leading scorer, rebounder, assist getter, steals. He's number 1 in all those categories for the Orlando Magic, Pro. So,
useful that it's going to affect their team for sure. So useful. Okay, I got you.
Useful. Pretty simple one, Pro. Wasn't trying to confuse you there, man.
Well, not really, Bogues. I mean, usually it's like this guy's leading the league in scoring, and he broke a 20-year record. Useful or useless. Now you gave me his stats and said he's out
Simple
to 2025.
He's had injuries. Oh, here's a better one then. Franz Wagner has more 30-point games this season than the following players. SGA, LeBron, Kyrie, Wemby, Steph, Ant, Booker, and Dame. Useful or useless?
Useful, Bogues. That's awesome. That's classic Bogues right there. Useful or useless. I think you were going down a beaten path on the last one. I'll give you you've been so good with them since you started with this. I'll give you a mulligan on it, but this one was much better. Useful for sure.
Franz Wagner is injured, so it's Franz Wagner themed useful, useless, and thanks to StatMuse for most of these. They do all of ESPN, by the way, ESPN stats and info. You might as well delete your account. They haven't posted a stat for like a year or two. I don't know what the hell's going on. Culling all those employees back in the day, they've obviously culled the ESPN stats and info one. So I basically am going to StatMuse for the most.
They should buy StatMuse. Let's try to jump on that bandwagon and get a cut from this. Let's have ESPN acquire StatMuse.
They're
you
great.
And I get a golden parachute for it, a little bit of a fucking kickback, and then we
had them on many moons ago. We had the founder on many moons ago. So, but they're great. They're awesome, and they got a search engine thing that you can chuck in who scored the most points in blah, 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 and it'll spit some
Yeah,
stuff out
good.
for you, which is pretty good. All right, Peyton Pritchard and Steph Curry are the only two players in the NBA shooting 43% from three on 8 3-point attempts, bro.
I think stats like that are always useful, Bogues. I would say definitely useful. What do you think?
Yeah, useful. I mean, in the day and age of how valuable a 3-point shot is, and you're a mass 3-point shooter, 43%. I mean, Pritchard's. I mean, I don't know what he did the last off season, but he's come back like a man possessed. He's shooting really, really well. He's playing really well, really well. He's almost playing himself out of a Boston Celtics uniform, for being honest. I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes in and offers him a deal that they just can't afford to pay because of their luxury tax situation.
I think they just gave him an extension, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see real quick. Salary.
2 seasons ago.
Pritchard. So he's on a really cheap deal. $7 million this year, 7.2, 7.8, and then 8.3 in 27-28. Yeah.
Timing's a wonderful thing. If he didn't sign that deal, he's a double digit million per year easily. So they've locked him up. Well done. Disregard that all. We might delete that, Trent. No, just joking. All right, last one, pro. Let's put your thinking hat on. These are the ones that you like, the ones that you always get wrong. All right, give me your most points by a bench this season, pro. Who's got the most bench points?
Give me a second. Just let me look at
it's 1,111 at time of recording.
Okay, and I didn't look at the run sheet, so I don't even know who the fuck this team is. So shocker. I'm gonna go. Yeah, shocker, no doubt about it. I am gonna go most scoring out of a bench. Houston?
No, they're not even.
No.
Four.
San Antonio.
No, they're not in the top 4 either. All right, number 1, the Memphis Grizzlies. Surprisingly,
yeah.
Number 2, you got the Warriors at 1,073. You got the Hawks at 3.
Wouldn't have thought that.
Obviously, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the Magic in 4th. So I found that pretty interesting. Just you would probably maybe the Warriors because they change up their lineups. Hawks you can kind of piece together with Bogdanovich. You still wouldn't have them there, but the Grizzlies and the Magic definitely not. Wouldn't have them in the top 4. So they're the best bench scorers. All right, Aussie of the week. We're going to probably go with Josh Giddey this week, pro. Dyson Daniels, this is before today's game. I didn't have those stats in because they're playing as we speak. Dyson was basically 13, 4, 4, and 4. 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals for the week. Josh Giddey, 11.7 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. So almost a triple-double with a steal. So he's going to get the nod this week. So, but he's up and down. Josh Giddey's up and down like a yo-yo. Dyson's been definitely more consistent, but Giddey did have a nicer week compared to where he's been during the regular season. He's had some games where he hasn't played a lot of minutes, and we've talked about his defensive woes at times. But we are currently tied 2-2, 2 for Dyson and 2 for Josh Giddey in the prestigious Aussie of the week. We need Ben Simmons to get out there. By the way, Ben Simmons has been officially benched. He's not playing a whole lot as much as he was. So watch that space as well with what happens there with the Aussie of the week. So we need another competitor. Who's our third wheel competitor, pro? Who can steal Australian? You got to remember all the Australians. It might be hard for you, but who's going to steal an Aussie of the week besides these two? Is anyone going to steal one?
Yeah, if they fucking smarten up in Houston and play Landale bet more, and then Josh Green's got a chance, I would think. But that's just because he gets enough minutes to think about it. And maybe Kyrie if he switches to Australian. So, that could be something.
Matisse is hurt. He's the only other one that probably has a chance when healthy, but he's not looking good. I haven't heard anything out from Portland about his knee. I agree. Josh Green's probably the third best, the next in line to have a chance. I thought it'd be Ben, but you just, he's so up and down. Who else do we have? Paddy's not playing. Joey's not playing. Yeah, Furphy's got some garbage minutes, but he won't really get in there. And then there's not much else there. So maybe if we see Drop Reef move, maybe you'll have a week or two like he did last season. I think he stole 1 or 2 last season. So hopefully we can get someone else. It's boring when it's just down to 2 guys, but we'll see how we go. Fact or fake news? What do you got?
I got 2, Bows. First one is John Collins is shooting 50, 40, 90 currently. Fact or fake news?
50, 40, 90? Fact.
Fact. 54, 91,
Wow.
8, and 41. You know the second one? 50, 40, 90 guy currently?
Didn't you mention it? Yeah, you mentioned it a couple of weeks
No.
ago.
No, I didn't. This guy's been hurt. He's just playing, so he doesn't really have a lot of games under his belt. But he's got enough. But he's 50. He's the only other 50, 40, 90 guy right now.
Guard or big?
Plays in the West. He's a wing. Plays in the West. Doesn't play for a good team.
Doesn't play for a good team. Let's have a look.
Yeah. Google that fucking shit up.
No, I'm going to look at who's bad in the West. Who's bad in the West? That's what I need.
Right now, Trent's pulling a fucking Matt Damon in The Departed and texting you from his fucking his pocket.
You think?
Like, doesn't even have to look at his phone.
It wouldn't make it fun. We don't need to cheat.
Yeah,
Sacramento
come on.
Kings, Portland Trailblazers, Utah Jazz, Pelicans, Lakers, Nuggets. They're not very good. Jeez.
First initial D.
De'Aaron Fox?
Last initial V. Jesus Christ.
DiVincenzo.
I'm gonna give you a hook. I'm gonna give you a fucking hooked on phonics for fucking Christmas.
Who is it?
Devin Vassell.
No,
51,
I never would have got that.
I know. 51, 90, 45.8. All right, Bogues, I got something because I want to have this discussion with you. Adam Silver in August talked about, I think it was August, talked about the NBA going international, either a tournament or some type of like mid-season, postseason sort of tournament deal. But there's been talk in the past about having an NBA Europe team. All right. Not how good the team would be. That would be a shit show in itself. But financially, an NBA team could be financially productive within a decade being in Europe. Fact or fake news?
Fake news. No, there'd have to be a lot of subsidies coming from the league. Just the travel alone would kill you.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard. And then, the Euros, you're not charging NBA pricing over there. These fans go with flares and flags and they're getting for pennies on the dollar to create an environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not selling those regular seats for €300-400. Like, people would laugh in your face,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very, very hard over there. Very, very hard. So, yeah, I would say no. Look, what's interesting is, I'd say fake news to that, but what's interesting is this Dubai EuroLeague team. I think that's I almost feel like it's going to push the NBA into a corner to maybe do something there as well, because they want that UAE money. They want that Emirates money, and they're figuring out how can we do it. The last thing they want is them to be completely in bed with the EuroLeague and Europe. And I think it's a good test case for the NBA to see how it functions, albeit it's a shorter flight, but how it all functions, how it goes. And it's going well at the moment. The team's doing pretty well too. So, yeah, that's the other interesting part, whether it does it go to Europe, does it end up going to the Emirates maybe before Europe. But yeah, I think it's going to be very tough to be fully. It's just different way of life, different cultures, and I think the amount of games will just throw people off. You got 41 home games to sell in, let's say, London, Barcelona, wherever you put in your team. Tough sell, real tough sell. It'll take some time.
Yeah, and the problem is franchise fee, like you said, subsidies from the league. Franchise fee would kill them. Ticket prices would kill them. They don't have the infrastructure for it. And the arenas. Like, I went to one of the nicest EuroLeague arenas in Europe, in Olympiacos, and they got a fantastic facility. But it's like 11,000. Like, you don't have the seating capacity. You don't have the revenue streams. You don't have the sponsors to give the money that the NBA does. In my opinion,
down to a certain number of cities, right? There's you're already down to a handful of cities you can go to as of today with a franchise.
Athens, Barcelona,
London, Paris,
Athens,
Barcelona.
London, Paris.
Yeah, that's it. So
yeah,
it'll be one of those
that's
anyway.
tough.
But
yeah, and like the Emirates thing, like, how would you even structure it though? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, what are you going to have them just to play all road games? I mean, there's no way. Like, teams going over there are going to be wiped out. You literally, you literally would have to like have one team at a time play like 4 games in a row, like spend a week over there, and then the travel coming back would be ridiculously bad. It's just, I don't know how you would do it.
It'd be worse for that team over there because they're going to probably have to be based for a month at a time in the US and knock out 15 odd games, and they literally play 15 straight road games and then come home and play 15 straight home games. That's how they do it. I mean, it's on the cards. I think as air travel becomes a bit more kind of fluid and maybe there's faster flights down the track, Elon gets a few more rockets going around the place, you could probably do it. Right now, it makes things very, very hard. It'd be brutal to be that team. But they'll incentivize it. Whoever that team is, the players will probably be super incentivized in a way. Probably there'd be something they'd put in that players can get 1.5 or 2x on what they're currently getting paid. Who knows, because there'll be a lot of people pissed. But that's what Toronto was not in a similar situation as that travel-wise, but a lot of players don't want to go to Toronto for that very reason. Different country, all that kind of shit, not close to home. So it's an interesting one, but I don't think it'll happen in the next 5 years, put it that way. I think we're a long way away from a team being overseas, other than, well, if you don't count Canada overseas, but that would be it. All right, bro.
Agreed.
Thank you. We'll go get some heat, man. Have a nice lie down, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, Bogues. Talk to you guys later. Later, Trent.
All right, man. All right, moving on to the NBL, and welcome back to Trent. He's back to give us some NBL musings as he follows the league as well as closely as I do. Starting off with Cotton, I mean, he's been on an absolute tear scoring-wise. One of the in recent times, one of the greatest scoring runs I've seen in NBL history. I followed the league for a very, very long time, but he had 40 and 49 in the 2 games. They go 1-1, but just the bulk of what he's doing, he's putting pressure on the defense every play. Look, it helps with how Perth are playing. Perth are playing a super high tempo. Like, their pace over the last month has been noticeably accelerated, gas to the floor. The other end, not so much. They're not playing a whole lot of defense, so they're trying to just run you out of the gym. Don't know if that's sustainable, but it is a dangerous team if you face in the playoffs. But yeah, he's playing very, very well, Trent, and just getting him up. He does get to the line a lot, which helps him too. You notice when he starts games slow, he'll get a couple of cheap fouls or, do the leg kick, get to the free throw line, goes 4 for 4, gets his eye in, and then that's when it's the most dangerous. You just cannot, when he misses his first couple of field goals, you cannot foul him. You just got to try to stay away from any contact, because then he gets his eye into that free throw line and then he's feeling good about himself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's been 148 points over his last 3 games. He's putting up numbers that guys haven't put up since the 48-minute era. So it's words. Yeah, you have to watch it to kind of believe it, because you see some of the stuff come up on socials the day after, and it's kind of hard to believe. But I think for Perth, they need to find ways to be effective without Bryce having to drop 40+ points a game, because it's not realistic for them for that to be consistent throughout the entire season. And I mean, that's evident in their loss to the Hawks, despite Cotton having 40. So I think for them, it's awesome Cotton's doing what he's doing, but is that sustainable through the rest of the season? They're kind of sitting in that 4th place spot at the moment, where it's they could very easily fall out of the 6. So it's how do we get guys like Doolittle, Pinder, Pepper, these guys involved to make sure that Cotton isn't, the only way these guys can win games?
Yeah, and both those guys hurt as well, so they'll be back shortly. But, you don't often see a team scoring 111, which Perth did, and losing in a 40-minute game. That's a crazy pace, and Illawarra had 121. So to our point, not a lot of defense there in Perth. We might rename them the Perth Wildcats and take the D out of their name. But they go 1-1 on the weekend. Illawarra obviously steal that one in Perth. They go 1-0. Perth then go to Adelaide, and look, Adelaide had control of most of that game, I felt like, but you just felt Perth were going to eventually, the access was going to cross and Perth would win the game, and they did. And behind Bryce scoring 49, I mean, Adelaide did get Davis back, and he played very, very well. But look, Adelaide are at a huge crossroad right now. As you spoke about, the ladder is an absolute cluster, and basically from 1 down to 9. It's still wide open, which we'll get to United in a little bit, but Adelaide at 6 and 8 have now dropped to 9th, but they go on a 2-game win streak, and they'll get to 5th potentially. So, but Trez comes back. What kind of shape is he going to be in? He's going to be interesting. He's been in the US for 2 weeks during the suspension. I don't know how long he's been in town, whether he's been training with the squad, don't know. But that's going to be questioned as well. Are you going to be in shape for a full NBL game the following week? So they're at a massive crossroads. A DJ injury, hurts them a lot. Look, I think it hurts them, but I think if they've got Davis and Trez, I think if there's one of those three that's injured, it's not that you want anyone injured. I think you can live without DJ more than those other two, because I think Davis creates a lot more for others. Trez demands a double team inside. So if it's one of those three, you probably lean towards DJ. A guy's shooting, high 30% at the moment on mass numbers, and assist to turnover ratio is basically the same. I think it's 2 to 1.4 or whatever it was the last time I checked. So not a lot of creation for others. So I think there's still a possibility they could be okay. The big one is Humphries. It's just so inconsistent. I commentated the Brisbane Adelaide game and just got absolutely eaten up by Tyrell Harrison. So they need more from him to have a chance. And now you got Sunday Dech, who looks to have done a hamstring as well. That's a huge loss for them because he's their best primary defender, their best on-ball defender, and a glue guy that doesn't need the ball. Feet set three guy, and a guy that was happy to play defense. Kind of a Wani role in Illawarra kind of plays that type of role where don't need the ball. I've got my imports. Some nights I'll have 15, some nights I won't, but I'm going to guard. So they're I don't know how you feel about them, but they're a massive crossroad to see. This next couple of weeks is going to be massive for them.
Yeah, 100%. And them being in a second place not too many weeks ago and now down into the 9th is insane. I don't know if I've seen that over the time I've followed the NBL, like how easily your outlook of your season can change. But they've been hit by the suspensions and the injuries to DJ, and now losing Sunday. It's going to be hard for them to bring these guys back into the fold and kind of get off to where they were before the suspensions. They were obviously playing great basketball. So it will be, I think, up to Mike Wells and the coaching staff to be able to integrate those guys back in and kind of get back to where they were pre the suspensions and stuff. And I think you're right on DJ. I don't think it affects them too much, but it will be integral to see kind of if KD and Trez can kind of come back into the system and kind of get off where they started. If there's any sort of kind of, grace period or any sort of like a couple games to get going, it could be a situation where they're struggling to get into the top 6 if they're not careful.
Well, the good news for them is they have New Zealand on the weekend who are really, really struggling.
Yep.
They make the questionable call. The Gillespie Taco Fall thing hasn't worked well yet. They get pummeled by Melbourne, and then the Sydney Kings get a pretty easy win. Probably should have been more, but they clawed it back respectably. But they look like a shell of themselves as well. So they've got them coming up on the weekend. But New Zealand, look, not many of us had them in the 6 anyway. I was highly surprised with the way they came out. I think there's a bit of luck here and there. They were playing decent basketball, but then they go and make a change that, by all reports, Gillespie was well liked in that locker room. He was a jovial fella, had a good sense of humor, great in the locker room, played hard, and was starting to his curve was going up. Like he started slow off the bench, but then 10 and 10 night, 4 blocks, making shots, making that elbow jumper, was a presence out there. You change it for Taco Fall, I just don't know how he fits in this league. You're going to struggle to play. It's such a slow style compared to what Cartwright wants to play, and it just doesn't fit. But that's a decision they made, which is a head scratcher, and they're in the grinder as well. They're coming off probably their worst weekend of basketball they've had in a number of years as far as back-to-back losses. That Adelaide-New Zealand game is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And they're similar to Perth in the sense that they're so reliant on PJC playing, like having 30 plus for them to be in these games. I think Matt Mooney's a great player. He can make shots, but he's a bit like Milton Doyle in the sense that he's a high volume guy, and when he's going, he's great. But when he's not going, he still has that kind of Jack mentality of just getting shots up. I think Menenga's been really good for them. I just think for them, their biggest thing is these defensive lapses I see they have in transition and in the half court. They're not very good defensively. Great offensive team at times, but yeah, similar boat to most of these teams, kind of in that 5 to 9 range, like a couple games here and there, and they could be completely outside the play-in picture. They just signed this Ty Wynyard, New Zealand kid, as an injury replacement, so hopefully he can kind of come in and fill some of those holes that Gillespie has now left. And like offensively, Taco doesn't really have anything for them. Defensively, good rim protector, I guess, at his size. But it'll be interesting to see if Ty can maybe come in and fill some of those holes for them. But yeah, very similar position to Adelaide and a lot of these other teams outside.
Yeah, definitely. Just and they looked, they haven't had a lot of practice time with Taco and figuring all that out. But just the pace of playing the NBL this season has been at an all-time high, and I'm not sure how that fits. Brisbane with an unexpected 2-0, obviously beating Adelaide. We could kind of say B team, no offense to the guys, but they were super short-handed. It was playing a lot of, it was a commentator that game, the amount of subs coming through. Wells was trying to find something. They just didn't have enough talent to get it done. But they were in that game. Brisbane take care of that. And then, kind of I was speaking with Derry Rucker about, now they're going to go to Melbourne. They just make sure they don't lay an egg, be in the game. They end up winning that game. They shoot it at 60%. They were making shots, and that's a loss that Vickerman will be scratching his head at, because that would have put them, given them a nice cushion within the grand scheme of things on the ladder. It would have taken them to 13-4, clear number one. Illawarra next best at 9-5, but now it's put them basically equal with Illawarra in the loss column. Illawarra has 3 games in hand, and then Sydney only 2 games behind. So that's one that would be ruining. But look, Brisbane a bit of heart, which we haven't seen, and Casey Prather just throwing it back. He was signed as their third cheap import, quote unquote, after they'd signed the other 2, Cook and Bateman, and he's their number 1 import at the moment. He's the one that's making them go. Bateman had the small little weekend where he had the 50-point game, but other than that, he hasn't been that great. Cook's been up and down. Prather's last month has been sensational. He guards, and they're running a lot of stuff for him there on that elbow and that elbow extended, and he's getting to his spots. And I think they've found something there that can probably help them maybe try to progress for a playing spot. But they're still, what are they, 8th at the moment. They're only a game out from basically 6th spot, so 5th spot, sorry. So they'll still be in there. I think New Zealand potentially will fall out, as you said. But yeah, Brisbane looking a little bit better, which is good.
Surprising too, considering Bannon's injury. I thought that they would slide more with him out of the lineup. He's a pretty integral piece in terms of even what you're kind of touching on, playing with that heart. He's a big part of that. But like you said, the emergence of Prather and what he's been able to do, especially this past round, combined with the consistency of Harrison. Harrison's been able, really throughout his career, the injury bug with him has not enabled him to kind of go out there and be a consistent 5 in the NBL. Whereas I'd argue this season he's a top 5 center in the league, and what he's able to bring to them offensively and then on the boards, you combine that with a scorer like Prather or Bateman coming in and being able to get those kind of timely buckets. They're a good team, and then they've got some good role players that kind of come in. They do their job. They don't necessarily need the ball in Nordo and these other guys. Cook, you'd like to see him be a bit more consistent with his shot. He's kind of very up and down game to game. You don't know what you're going to get from him, but yeah, it could go either way from them, similar to the Breakers and Adelaide and these other teams. Like, when they're good, they look like they can beat most teams in the league, but when they're bad, like it's really bad. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all shuffles out with their games kind of coming up. But I think they've got a bit of a kind of easier schedule these next couple games.
Yeah, and the Harrison thing, I mentioned on broadcast, for big kids out there, watch his clips and watch his game. He never does anything generally outside of his skill set. He doesn't try to do something or make a move to throw down a big dunk for the crowd. He just plays at his tempo and gets to his spots. He's notorious for just getting to that 5-6 footer, puts his shoulder into you, shoots the rolling hook, catches a post up, one dribble, spin, nothing. I'm not trying to back you down for 15 seconds. I'm not trying to, nothing fancy, and gets it done. You have 20 and 20. I think he almost had 20 and 20 the other night, and it's just very simple, good basketball, quick decisions. Where he sometimes does get in trouble is when he tries to overthink things and he tries to dribble as a double coming. I'm going to try to make this integral pass. When he's just instant double coming, swing, double, no double, hook shot. he's very, very tough to stop and just does not confuse the game, which is good to see in a young big fella. Sydney and Melbourne obviously beating New Zealand over there. We spoke about that. Sydney looked much better. Not starting the imports. There was some sickness there, so they let them kind of get a bit of extra rest and got that win, which is good. Cairns go 0-2. I thought they would have a chance against Southeast Melbourne. They fought back in that game. They just couldn't get it done, but they're pretty close to healthy now. I still would not be surprised if they don't finish last. I think they'll steal some wins up in Cairns, especially if people look at that team as they've got a bad record, will roll in there and get an easy win. So you've got to be careful with them, I think. And Tasmania got them, got Cairns, and Southeast Melbourne did. So the latter is a cluster. But it's fun. It changes weekly, which is what you want. And just finally, I'll finish up on a story I spoke about on broadcast. We're talking about, the most pressure on any coach in the league is the guy that has the laptop for the reviews, right? So your coach turns around and looks at that guy whenever there's a questionable call, and you've literally got 5 seconds. Like, imagine you, Trent, you're on your laptop, you're trying to look at and you're like, shit, oh, yeah, thumb up or thumb down, and that's it. And the Adelaide assistant gave 2 thumbs up on a call, and it was wrong. So we're talking about that. And I circled back to a time before we had the reviews. They weren't even a thing. And it was Andrew Gaze was the head coach, and we're playing Perth in Sydney. Andrew Gaze was coach, and there was no reviews at that point. And we come out of it. We're in a timeout. I think Perth got on a run. We're in the timeout, and we go, okay, we're going to come out in a zone. We hadn't played in zone or the whole game. It was the third quarter. We come out in the zone. And as we're walking out on the floor, their bench is talking to the players saying they're coming out in the zone. And I'm like pretty aware, pay attention to shit. And I'm sitting there like, how the hell did you guys know we're coming out in a zone? So Adam Ford was an assistant there, and I found out later on, and Andrew Gaze found out later on. So I went to our coaches after the game, and I said, we have a snitch on our bench. Like, we have someone leaking info to the Perth Wildcats, because there's no way within 5 seconds of coming out of a timeout, they should know what we're doing in a change-up. Like, we're going to come out in a zone, because we've never done it all season, really. So I was like fuming, like in Gaze. I'm like, you need to find out who this is. This is bullshit. Someone's leaking shit to them. So anyway, they do some research, this and that. They come back and they figure out that Adam Ford would have an Apple Watch on, right? They'd have a film coach in the locker room watching the live feed, because the NBL's, for those not aware, there's no delay. Some sports have a 5-second delay. So this guy, their intern or the film coach or video coach, whoever it is, in the locker room on a laptop with a phone in his hand, and our timeouts were mic'd up live, right? So he's watching what we're talking about in the timeout. Just a little text coming out in zone to his watch. He sees it on his watch, and that's how they did it. So full credit to him. Like, I think they put in a rule later, no Apple Watches on the phone. There's still ways to do it. You can still hide it. You can wear a long sleeve, whatever. But I was kind of impressed with the ingenuity. I was like, as pissed as I was like, so then I went to Gaze and I said, why the fuck aren't we doing it? Like, get an Apple Watch on. And they're just like, Bogus, you're crazy. I'm like, no, seriously, I am crazy, but I want to win. Where the hell's our Apple Watch? Get an Apple Watch and do the same shit. If they're using that as an advantage, I want to use it. I want to use every 1%. So I touched on that on broadcast, but we have about 30 seconds to explain it. So I wanted to explain it if you listen to the broadcast and heard that story. Just the lengths that smart team, and I credit Perth for that, because it's smart as shit. It's smart. And most players probably wouldn't have picked up what was going on. I heard it, and I was like, straight away, I was like, alarm bells. Some shit's not right, Trent. Like, how do they know what we're doing? And that's how it ended up coming out. So it was quite an interesting story.
The most 40 thing you've ever heard as well. 40 just is...
And Gleason.
Yeah, and Gleason.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's crazy, especially those Perth teams, how good they were, and they were still looking for every little advantage they could gain.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. I think you look for all those advantages until a league puts a rule in and fixes things. And
you think you could get away with it as easily as you could today? Because you were advocating for them to bring the mic'd up huddles back, right?
I'll just keep them. Yeah, just keep them. Look, I don't think you need to do it, because you've literally got someone on a laptop now behind you. Yeah. So basically, that's why you'll see a lot of coaches now in the NBL. They will, once the timeout's over and players stand up, they'll follow their players onto the court and say, "Hey, they'll make that quick adjustment. That's not on camera, so the other assistant can't hear it." So, but I like the microphone stuff. because I think it brings something to our league that no other league offers. I know for a fact the AFL Players Association and the Rugby League will not allow it. The coaches associations won't allow it because a coach is going to be using all kinds of explicitives and it might not look good. But every now and then a coach drops an F-bomb and they don't catch it. They don't beep it because it's not delayed. At the start, we had Karens writing in saying, my son heard a swear word on the NBL telecast. Where you're like, but the NBL's got a good job of not panicking with that and knowing that it's human emotion and every now and then you're going to hear a bad word. These are the same kids, mind you, that probably watch R-rated movies, right? But Karen has to write a letter. So I think it brings something that other leagues don't have. So we got to emphasize that. As far as having cameras in locker rooms and all that, I kind of draw the line on inner sanctum stuff. But I like the fact that we have something different, and the NBL has to try and do different stuff to try and engage a viewer or have different points of difference that are, that we're competing with the two most highly funded sports in Australia. So I think it's a no-brainer.
100%. And you look at why the NBA is so marketable is because of the access they give the media and these different people. If you're worried about swearing, you could do something similar to the NBA where they do that inside the tracks, and it's just like post-huddle. If they know they've got a clean section of where their coaches are just motivating or whatever, they play that right before the ball gets put in or whatever. Might not necessarily have to be live, but there'd be ways around it where you can still provide that access. And if swearing's an issue, you work around that, post.
Yeah, the issue with that tech is it's so much more expensive, and your production, in-house production, then becomes much more expensive because you got to. Yeah, you're right. The NBA will record the timeout and then show it at what the flow of play is going on with the split screen. That split screen technology itself is super expensive.
Right.
So,
okay.
like for the NBL because I'll ask a question, like one of my pet peeves of the NBL sometimes is they show a replay and live play started and you miss like 15 seconds of live play. You're like what? I just missed what happened.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens so quickly. So you're like, I suggest to them, get a split screen. They're like, yes, but that's part of the broadcast deal. It's much more, so that they're the intricacies, and the NBA does a great job of it. And the NBA, when we used to get mic'd up, they'd always tell us, rest assured, if you say something stupid, we're not going to air it. So it's not live without delay. We'll package it up and then throw it on inside track. But their production team has a trillionth of the budget of the NBL, right? So they can do whatever they want. So that's where the NBL is growing to, and there are definitely suggestions that are viable. But the more access you can give to just different kinds of things, the better. And I think the players themselves in the NBL do a very good job of just after games going to the fans, not just doing a high five, but you can, in basketball games, you can have the intimacy with a player. You actually see a couple of players stop and chat to sponsors and people and all that. So that access you can't get in the footy, you can't get in the rugby league, you can't get in those sport, even cricket, because it's such a big arena and all that kind of stuff. Where basketball, I think, provides a bit more of that access, which the NBL has done a really good job of emphasizing that players and coaches do that and keep it more even though it's a big arena, it's still a community feel where a sponsor, might have a kid there. That sponsor might renew for another 5 years because their kid's smiling on the way home, right? And then those are kind of the important things that you have to do, and the NBA has done a great job of. So we'll watch that space. Good to have you back, man. We'll chat more next week, and another roller coaster ride of NBL coming up.